our lifetime experiences together and where he is now. And Chris can fill us in on the particulars and the dates because he's quite an accomplished guy. Chris and I have known each other for a long, long time. We both grew up down at the beach club in Santa Monica. That's where I learned to play volleyball. That's where Chris was also an excellent volleyball player, started his paddle tennis and tennis career. Our mothers were both sorority sisters at SC. They were Thetas at SC, so we have a huge SC connection. And in fact, his mom just had her 90th birthday party about a year ago. They even had Traveler out there for down at the beach club for that. So we've had a lot of fun. Chris is an accomplished athlete, two-time NC2A team championships at SC. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, at doubles. He won the NC2A doubles himself. Played on
himself.
Well,
doubles yourself.
You shut up. You've already done enough damage. Anyway,
I was just checking.
Played pro. Actually played in Wimbledon. See, I remember. He's not the guy who was in the finals from New Zealand, but he did play in Wimbledon. And after his tennis career, he had mentioned to me that he had joined a guy named Richard something and was being involved in helping manage his investments. Well, it was Richard Reardon, and when Reardon was mayor, Chris was running the show. It was about 10 years ago they took Pat in, something like that, Chris?
15, 20.
15, that long ago?
20 years ago.
Pat Hayden's the partner, but Chris has just done a marvelous job of working with Richard Reardon and Pat Hayden. Very, very humble guy. I consider him a real close friend. Helped get my insurance career started, and I was just really pleased that you consented to come out here. So thank you, and the floor is yours, Chris. Oh, by the way, just personal side. Been married for over 25 years, 3 wonderful children, and just very well respected on a social and on a business level. The floor is yours.
So Ken, what would you like me to do? Like me to give you an overview, or I know you have some questions for me?
I have some questions, but I'd love, since it's a nice intro for you, maybe you want to give us an overview, and then we could kind of maybe go into some stuff if there's some interest there.
Okay. I think I'll stand too, so I can see everybody. I think that'll be easier for me. As Frankie said, I grew up here in Los Angeles, actually at Westwood. Grew up spending a lot of days at the beach, and I'm still very fond of the beach. It's a great place to exercise, and it's just a very refreshing place. Wound up going to Harvard School, graduated from Harvard. When I was 18, I was probably the 7th or 8th best tennis player in the United States for my age. Wound up trying to decide between SC, Stanford, and Princeton for school. Wound up at SC. At SC, I was there for 4 years. Actually never anticipated playing professional tennis. Actually anticipated always being a lawyer. In fact, I was going to go to UCLA Law School. Had books to go to UCLA Law School, and the summer I graduated from SC, I did very well in a few tournaments. My ranking dropped to about 70 in the world. And so all of a sudden I could play every major tournament, and I decided to postpone going to UCLA Law School. I actually had a scholarship to go, which was pretty cool. And I wound up postponing law school for 2 years. My father became ill, and my ranking never really got below 70. And maybe I could have practiced harder, but to be honest, by the time when you go to you go to Hong Kong the 3rd time, go to Chicago the 3rd time, it got a little old. And I befriended a lot of athletes, who were tennis players from all over the world, who were more older than I. They would probably be more like 28 or 29. And I saw what their lives were like. And they weren't #1 in the world. They weren't the top 5 in the world or the top 10 in the world. And it was very obvious to me that their life was a grind. And so I decided pretty early on that I wasn't going to do this for too long. And so my father became ill, and unfortunately for him, he became ill, but luckily for me, I decided as a result to stop playing tennis. At the time, I was about 80 in the world, and I wound up going to business school, and it was probably one of the most eerie weekends of my life, where on one weekend I'm playing in the French Open, My partner and I are in the semis, the mixed. We're playing in front of, I don't know, 15,000 people, 10,000 people, and it's in their main stadium. Everybody's going crazy. It's a tremendous experience, and that's on a Friday. On Monday, I'm at business school at USC, and I was late by a week because I was still in the tournament, and my professor's yelling at me. Here I am sitting here going, God, 3 days ago they're cheering for me, now this little jerk is yelling at me. Why did I make this change? But I think actually for me it was the smartest thing I ever did. I have a variety of friends who today, I'm 54, so we're talking, this is 30 years ago. I have a variety of friends who are still in tennis, they never got out of tennis, and it really can be a trap. So I'm actually glad to see all of you are making your way, and you've pursued sports, but there is life after sports in other areas. And there really are very few people who can take sports their entire career or their entire life and make out of it what they really want to make out of it. So I think it's great you guys are doing that. So anyway, I went to business school. I wound up going to USC Business School. I started there in June or in May. I finished in January. I took a double load. Basically took 8 classes a semester because I wanted to get in and I wanted to get out. I wound up working at Bank of America for a very short stint. I was only there for a year, and I didn't like it because they were so conservative. This would have been 1981 or 82. If you guys are too young, but if you've been around, you'd realize that the Dow for about 10 years had basically been flat, and firms were more interested about saving money rather than losing money. Rather than making money. So it was just a firm I really wasn't interested in, or an approach, and I wound up quitting. I wound up writing a book about tax law that had some great ideas, but never got published, never got approved, and never went anywhere. But I wound up going to Vegas on a trip with about 50 guys. I was the youngest probably by 10 years, and this particular trip changed my life. So I'm sitting at a crap table. I have about 500, maybe $750 that I take to Vegas. And I'm not a tremendous gambler. I've gambled a lot, but it's not something I do on a daily basis or even think about. But I'm at a crap table, and one of the guys in our group has, if you know anything about craps, has basically held the dice for 25 minutes, and we are killing it. My $500 that I started with has probably turned into about $4 or $5 grand. And I'm not betting a lot. I mean, I'm betting 5s and 10s, but as you win, you proceed to bet more. So there's this individual standing next to me who is probably 50 or so, and he's making every dumb bet there is possible. And if you know anything about craps, the bigger the space on the table, the worse the bet is. It's more alluring, it looks more attractive, but that's not where you want to bet. And so anyway, this individual was betting next to me, and every time he lost, he would go through these motions. Oh, God, losing, I figured he was betting everything his family had, and he was losing everything they had. So finally I leaned over to him and said, "Sir, that's not the smart way to bet." And he kind of looks at me very indignantly and says, "Well, who the hell are you?" I don't know. I said, "Well, I'm doing okay, but you're not." And so I kept talking to him. And finally he said, "Why don't you just bet for me?" So he pushed all his chips over to my little socket, and I really didn't want that. I said, no, I don't want to do that. He says, "You bet for me, you bet 10 times whatever you bet for me, and I'll track you." Okay, I can do that. So he started with about $5 grand, he wound up with about 100. And that was Richard Reardon. That is how I met Dick.
He never told me this.
It turns out that he was in the same group that I was in. It turns out that his brother, I actually knew because his brother used to manage Jimmy Connors way back, many years ago. Davis, you're old enough to probably remember what Jimmy Connors played.
I'm old enough to remember everything.
Challenge matches against Billy Nastasi and Laver, but it was another Bill Reardon, and Bill knew me very well because he tried to get me on his tour or whatnot. But so anyway, Dick was in this group, and he wound up coming up to me after the weekend and says, I want you to come work with me. Now, he was a lawyer at the time, or I thought he was, that's what his card said. And if you remember, I didn't wind up going to law school. And so I met with him, and that was